This is what it used to look like right here.
Oh,
we're
wow.
just for the listeners, we're being shown a picture of what the Boulevard used to look like, and it looked like a neon sex delight.
Yeah.
A box of neon sex delights.
There is a guy walking past now somewhere going, I can't believe the fucking gentrification of that place. Used to love it when it was a dirty old seedy hole.
I remember when it had the personal appearances of the world's greatest names in striptease.
and now it's just birds talking about feminism.
With their clothes on.
Now that is a cold opening and a half, isn't it? If you want to see the picture we're talking about, the neon box of joys, you can go over to the Freelance Pod Instagram account at Freelance Pod, and in an album about this episode, you'll find 2 pictures, one from the old days of the Raymond Review Bar, and a current picture of the Boulevard Theatre, and the comparison is a reflection of how Soho has changed in the last few decades. It's really worth having a look. But who are those 3 voices that you just heard from? Well, they are the women of the Standard Issue podcast. You heard Hannah Dunleavy, Jen Offord, and Mickey Noonan. And Freelance Pod was recording in Standard Issue at the end of last week at the Boulevard Theatre because we both have live shows there in November. You can go and see Standard Issue's live show on Sunday the 10th of November, and they've got a Women in TV themed special for you. The next week you can come and see Freelance Pod at the theatre. That'll be Sunday the 17th of November, and we've got a internet and science and publishing and writing themed episode for you. You can hear a bit more from my guest for that, Gemma Milne, a science and tech writer, a bit later on this podcast. Hello and welcome to Freelance Pod. My name's Chandrika Chakrabarti and I'll be your host. Freelance Pod tells stories about creativity and the digital revolution. I've been a journalist for 13 years now and a podcaster for nearly 2, so I've seen a lot of the changes that digital has brought to the media. I've also trained a lot of people on how to deal with all those changes. I'm now freelance and juggle a number of jobs myself, writing for different audiences, making audio, teaching, speaking, presenting. It's a classic portfolio digital career. On each episode of this podcast, I ask a person who works in a creative field to tell me about how the internet has transformed or invented their job. From Twitter's director of curation to Ed Miliband's podcast producer, along with a few appearances from some guy called Charlie Brooker, we've been hearing brilliant stories about how the internet has revolutionised work and, well, our lives. If you enjoy the podcast, please do rate, review and subscribe over on Apple Podcasts, and why not tell a friend too? This helps our community grow, and that enables me to keep making Freelance Pod. You can also sign up for the Freelance Pod newsletter, which comes out every time there's a new episode, which is about every week. You can find the newsletter at suchandrika.substack.com. Suchandrika is spelt Suchandrika, so that's suchandrika.substack.com. The podcast is also on social, of course, and I do love hearing from you, so feel free to get in touch. You can find it on Twitter at freelance_pod_. It's on Instagram at freelancepod, all one word. There's also a Facebook group. Just search for Freelance Pod. The podcast isn't officially on LinkedIn, but you can find me on there too. I'm Chandrika Chakrabarti, and I do share all that juicy Freelance Pod content on there. So, an introduction to Gemma Milne, who'll be the guest for Freelance Pod's next live show. Gemma is a science writer, writing for publications like The Times and Forbes and all sorts. And she's also got a book coming out in April 2020. It's called Smoke and Mirrors, and it's about the hype around science and technology reporting online and how the internet can really amplify that. So we'll be talking about everything from the subjects she writes about to freelancing to what it takes to publish a book, because Gemma is making a YouTube series to help authors find their way through pitching and getting an agent for their non-fiction book. So that's really helpful. And here's our conversation and a little insight into how the show will be. So enjoy.
I'm Gemma Milne. I'm a science technology writer, podcaster, author, consultant, advisor. I have quite a lot of job titles.
So your book, which is called
Smoke and Mirrors.
And it's out next April.
April 2020.
You started a YouTube series where you're helping other people work through that whole process of how do you pitch a book, find an agent. Can you tell us a bit more about that series?
Yeah, so it's basically just a couple of episodes on how to write a book, how to get it published, how to find an agent, and frankly, all I'm doing is just talking about how I did it. I'm not an expert on how to get books published because I've just done one. It's essentially me just sharing my journey, and a lot of that is because when I was at the early stages of thinking about it, I didn't think there was very much information, particularly for non-fiction writers.
And so we're going to dissect some really well-known but wrong ideas about science, like the robots are going to take our jobs and vaccinations are bad, and what are some of the other ridiculous ones we might well be taking down?
Yeah, oh God, I mean, there's so many narratives that are just thrown around. Like, I mean, we're going to beat cancer, as this sort of war narrative of cancer is really problematic, in my opinion. Robots are going to steal our jobs, or, Terminator's coming, or these kind of things that we all kind of, if you read, a science outlet or a tech outlet, you kind of expect to see. But this book I've just written is all about nuance and how you spot hype, how you work around hype if you don't have a PhD, and why hype can sometimes be really dangerous too.
So there you go, that was Gemma Milne, and you can hear lots more from her on Sunday the 17th of November at the Boulevard Theatre. So if you're interested to find out more details or to buy tickets for just £12, go to the Boulevard Theatre website and click away. So now let's hear from the Standard Issue podcast. Got to say, first of all, a really big thank you to a programmer at the Boulevard Theatre, Emma Groom, for finding us this really delightful space to record in at very short notice. So yes, we are sat on a landing at the Boulevard Theatre between a toilet, a lift and a rehearsal going on in the main theatre. I feel if you're recording a podcast in Soho, you need a bit of atmosphere in the background. So it was a really fun space to record in.
Shall I do my comedy routine again? I liked it.
Hi, this is Hannah Dunleavy. I am 1/4 of the Standard Issue team.
This is Jen Offord, and I am also 1/4 of the Standard Issue team.
And hello, I'm Noonan, and I am 2/4 of the Standard Issue podcast team. I got a bigger laugh the first time. And the other quarter of our podcast team is Sarah Millican. She's not here right now. Where is she?
Nobody knows.
No one knows. She's an enigma.
So how did you guys all meet?
Well, we were all raised by wolves.
The same wolf?
The same wolf.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're sisters. Have we never mentioned that before? That
No,
we're sisters.
weird.
That's weird. So we were put together basically
Cracked.
We're like the A-Team.
We were both trying to steal all three of us were trying to steal some diamonds. When Sarah started Standard Issue, she asked, as a magazine, she asked me to be editor, and for a while it was just me in my back room crying, wondering why I'd said yes. And then I said I could do with some help, and I needed a deputy editor, and I wanted her to be a journalist. And Hannah had written something that I really loved, and I really liked our emails, so I asked if it could be Hannah. And Hannah came on board, and then I think it was a year or so later, Jen started writing for us. And so then when we became a podcast, that was the team that Sarah put together.
Do you remember what the article was about? You found Hannah through.
Oh yeah, she wrote a legal guide.
Yeah. Well,
But it was funny.
It wasn't an article for us so much. It was because for the writers, we were employing a lot of people who'd never written anything before. Comedians that's not necessarily true. They had written things before, but they perhaps hadn't written anything that was going to be published outside of like a blog space or something. So I thought, I can see a couple of issues here, because I used to do comedy and I used to say things that were probably defamation, and I used to probably be in contempt of court, but that doesn't matter when you say on stage.
And then you met media lawyers and
Yeah.
you thought, I would never say anything in public again.
Yeah, and I just thought, maybe they need a bit of a nudge. I tried to write it in an entertaining fashion, so it didn't seem dry.
Media can be quite entertaining.
It is quite easy, because you just...
It's mistakes that journalists have made.
I mean, we actually had a piece in our podcast. We got the excellent Dr. Holly Powell-Jones in to explain to people, this is how you don't use a picture of the wrong H when you're talking about the wrong Ian Watkins, and they use H from Steps. So, yeah, I mean, that's not a funny story for him. But,
everyone else.
It's quite a funny story. So, yeah, if you focus on those things, people are interested, and then they take the law in. So,
and basically,
anyway, that's what I wrote.
Hannah's talking about libel. Oh, I swooned. I must meet this woman. Who is she? I have to work with her. And Jen was recommended to us actually by Carrie Lloyd. Carrie had done a bit of writing for us, and she said, my mate is writing a brilliant blog about sport, and I think she'd be really good for Standard Issue. So Jen and I had a natter on email, and she started writing for us, and very quickly became our sports correspondent. And then fucked off and cycled. Are we allowed to swear?
Yes.
Okay, good, thanks. And then fucked off and cycled around America and sort of wrote and kept us updated on what she was doing there.
The state of her bum.
Yeah.
Undercarriage, thank you very much, which has different connotations, and I mean it to.
You're a mysterious mount.
I think there's a way in which people speak about stuff, like say Women's Hour, for example. People who don't listen to Women's Hour and create an idea of what they think Women's Hour is, and you'll get a lot of it as people will be really sort of like, it happens to mums now a bit as well, you know, anywhere that women gather is like, oh, it's just them prattling on about periods and you're like, sometimes it is, but you know, hey, there's a shitload to talk about.
The word gossip, which is used very pejoratively about women, men gossip.
Yeah. Oh my god!
But it's seen very much as something that women do and very easily dismissed. When actually it's women talking about stuff that's relevant to us.
Do you know what? Also, the term bitchy, which obviously is meant for women because bitch.
Yeah.
You know? I used to freelance at this place where like the men were like so much like they were like absolutely vile the way they spoke about like other people, and in a really like quote unquote bitchy way, way worse than I've ever heard like any group of women talk about. I mean, that's going off the point.
Yeah, no, but it's seeing women. It's seeing women as a genre, as opposed to more than half of the population, 51% of the population, and also a paper that prides itself. It's got a female editor, Catherine Viner, who does a lot of good stuff. But The Guardian, where you will find the women's section, is in the lifestyle section. Yeah. Like, it's where you'll also go to look at sofas. And there we are, like, important issues for women are still buried because they're not seen as big news.
And 52% is enough to take into a country through hell for 3 years. So we're 1% of running this whole show. But yeah, I completely agree with you. I feel like Standard Issue is saying, like, we are standard. We're just as a default as men are.
I think you put a lot more thought into the title of that. We just really like the name. But yeah, also, yeah, we do come as standard. But I'm loving your theory.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, that's the time.
Pin that down. Pin the tail on that donkey. And we just wanted something that, wasn't like, you know, ooh, flowers in PMS.
Lady time.
Lady time. Oh, I wanted to call it lady time.
Did you?
No, of course I didn't.
Of course you did.
Constant moon time. No, we did want something that was fairly generic. And we did, when we were a magazine, our readership was 73% women and 27% men. And we've never said anything other than we are for women, but men are welcome to read too.
Yeah.
Mick and I have been here before, and I was just telling Jen about the first time that we came here when it was still largely a building site. And Emma said, why don't we meet you under the glass walkway? And we were like, okay. And what she didn't point out was the glass walkway was next to the sex shop that's selling all the selling some Viagra and then some other things that we don't even know what it is.
What's Camagra?
I don't know.
Is it to keep your camera tripod stiff?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. I think it's great that what used to be sex theatre is now hosting the arts, which are very sexy. I actually started my journalism career working for Lads Max. I started off working for a magazine called Later, which was Builder's Loaded's older brother, and then I worked for Maxim, FHM, Marine, all of them. I was Maxim's sexpert for 9 months. They said that my copy wasn't belt loosening enough. They wanted them running for the toilets, and I was like, I'm going to stop writing.
Was it said with a hard, cheeky, like...
Oh, no. It was... I worked with some brilliant, brilliant people, but it was incredibly sexist, and I was one of only 2 women writing on Later. And when I went for the staff writer job, my boss at the time, who had given me loads of stuff, I'd had cover stories, went, but you're a girl. To little 22-year-old me.
Running for the toilet?
Yeah.
To have a wax?
Yeah.
Not a wax.
Yeah. Make them piss, Mickey. Make them piss.
Well, I was like, maybe shit themselves. I don't know. I needed to...
This is why we don't want any kind of sexy time stories.
Were the only other women apart from two writers coming in, usually women who came in to photograph
Yeah,
various
that
stages of...
I've got to say, that was really interesting as a young woman, not at all confident about her looks. And there was basically one of two ways you could go. You could kind of glam up and be a woman in the office, or I just was like, no makeup, like tracksuit bottoms, but like loose jeans, just was one of lads, I suppose, to try to fit in. But yeah, the amount of airbrushing that you saw, the amount of photoshopping that you saw, was actually kind of reassuring. That's where I learned that people don't actually look like that.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. And the other woman who worked on that magazine with me is now an incredibly successful journalist. She's editor-in-chief of Empire magazine, the brilliant Terry White. So it's a very good starting base for brilliant women journalists, oddly. But yeah, there was definitely that underlying sexism of lads' mags. And I wanted to work for lads' mags because women's mags to me were even more sexist. Lads' mags wore it on their sleeves. It is like, but they tell their readers that they can have the woman on the front cover, that they can get the job they want, that they can do everything they want to do, that they can be like their own hero. Whereas women's mags were always like, how to get your man, how to please your man, how to get, oh fuck off, what about me?
How to change yourself entirely.
Or
you
all the reasons you're shit.
You can have all these things as long as you change yourself entirely.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what it used to look like right here.
Oh,
We're
wow.
just for the listeners, we're being shown a picture of what the Boulevard used to look like, and it looked like a neon sex delight.
Yeah.
A box of neon sex delights.
There is a guy walking past now somewhere going, I can't believe the fucking gentrification of that place. Used to love it when it was a dirty old seedy hole.
I remember when it had the personal appearances of the world's greatest names in striptease.
And now it's just birds talking about feminism.
With their clothes on.
When was your first live show?
No, it's the other way around.
Oh.
We did live shows while we were at a magazine, just to sort of publicise the magazine. The first one was at Harrogate Theatre. Mainly because I worked there at the time. I was doing some press for Harrogate Theatre. We wanted to make some cash, get the word out about the magazine, and it was quite the lineup. We had Sarah, Bridget Christie, Catherine Ryan, and Susan Calman. And it was great. That was huge. And it did really well. And so Sarah was very excited to, one, have, like, it was such a success, too good for the magazine, and three, to be on stage with three women. She really enjoyed that. So we did a few more. We did like 12 before.
Before we became a podcast.
Yeah, so we actually went the other way around, and then it was like, okay, what else can we do that's audio?
But I suppose that kind of created the idea that we were already making a podcast, even though at the point we decided to make a podcast, we literally had no freaking idea what we were doing.
Oh my God, do you remember when we first got the Marantz? We were just like pressing buttons and nothing exploded. So we were a magazine for 2 and a bit years, and then it just was losing money because we promised that we would never take advertising that would make women feel shit or make them feel like they had to correct themselves, which means we didn't get enough advertising to continue. So the decision was made wisely to cut our cloth accordingly. And Sarah's a big podcast fan, and she said, I think it would be a really, really good podcast, like a magazine-style podcast. Do what you do with the internet version for ears. And so that's how we built ourselves as a magazine for ears, but it was a pretty steep learning curve, right?
Yeah. I mean, not just because, having been a journalist for years and sat and listened back to interviews that I'd done and hated the sound of my own voice, hated literally every single thing about it.
I stopped recording, would only ever use shorthand because I hated transcribing.
But then for the sound of my voice to actually be the end product, that was a bit weird to come to terms with.
I think, no one likes the sound of their own voice, do they? I think it's always because it sounds different to how it sounds in your head.
Yeah.
So, I think everyone feels a bit uncomfortable when they hear their own voice. But
turns out I can't really say my S's, can you?
I can't really say my R's as well as I thought I did.
Turns out none of us can enunciate.
Yeah. But you just kind of, you said you never really got used to it. I'm sort of used to it when it's, I guess I am used to it, but it definitely took quite a while. And again, having come from print journalism to audio journalism to broadcast,
it's very different in the way you approach interviews. So I've no doubt that I'm good at like getting stuff out of people. It's what I've done for 20 odd years on a professional level. But doing that in an order, so you can ask wasted questions in a print interview because you're just getting them to warm up.
Yeah.
You have to go in warm with an audio interview, and that was something that just took a little while to learn. Yeah,
and also it makes it sound like you're manipulative, but you're not. But, sometimes you tell a story because they're going to tell you a story back, and then you just cut your story out because you're not the point of it. And it's not dishonest because they have told the story, but it doesn't necessarily in audio work because you have to segue from something to something. You can't just, in proper cheating fashion, sometimes you just put 3 stars and in the feature and drop down and start a whole new thing.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to leave stuff like that in. So you have to be sort of careful that what you say is interesting enough that, if a listener's going to have to listen to it, but also, actually watch what you say and redact all of the stuff that's like, you probably shouldn't say, like, oh, my fucking next door neighbour or whatever, that you're like, oh my God, I'm going to have to cut that out just in case they listen to it.
If there's a way you want to lead them into saying a story they have, you have to put all of that at the top before you then finish with the question. Rather than, I guess, in a print interview, you go, so how do you feel about so-and-so because this, and this?
Yeah.
But you need to swap that around. So, yeah, it's been super fascinating having to tweak the knowledge I already had to fit a different medium has been really, really interesting.
And editing, because, you can change the order that words are in a written sentence with no repercussions whatsoever. But you cannot do that with people's intonation. And it's just great. Yeah.
So even just like when you cut something, you go, okay, I can lose that bit. If by the time you want to bring them back in, the mood has dropped or it's a more serious question. It is so noticeable that sometimes, and I guess we've got a bit more space than you would with print, but you just leave a bit in so that it feels smoother.
One of the things about podcasting is, there are podcasts out there done by non-journalists who I think, if you wanted a different career, Craig Parkinson's Two Shot Pod, he gets great answers out of people.
He's a wonderful
he would make a really good journalist if his acting career fell down. So I think, and that doesn't, everybody has more than one skill set. So, podcasting in that way gets people to exercise a muscle they kind of didn't already know they had. So, yeah, I think interviewing is a skill, but I think that some people actually just have it intuitively. Is that the word? Yeah, or instinctively are just maybe more empathetic people.
I think the key thing when I've taught journalism to kids and various things, I always say, what do you think the most important thing about journalism is? And they'll be like, writing, the way you write. And I'm like, it's people. You've got to be interested in people.
Yeah.
And then the second one is listening.
An interview is basically a decent conversation.
It's a curiosity, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you've got to have that interest. You've got to want to know about something.
I think it's how you make people feel as well. So I tell people now,
sexy. You've got to make them feel sexy.
I used to be a civil servant. I worked in environmental policy basically for 9 years, and towards the end of that, I started writing a blog about the stupid thing I was doing. Basically, during the Olympics, so I was going to try every Olympic sport and write a blog about it. When I was younger, I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a journalist, but I'd just gone down a different path basically. So I guess I had some of the characteristics that maybe you would be good, I don't know, whatever, but I'm not making any sense.
That blog is classic stunt journalism though, it's perfect.
Yeah.
It'd be great for a magazine feature.
Well, it did all right. Well, it didn't go nuts or anything, but there were a few newspaper articles about it. I did Sky News.
You met Boris Johnson?
I met Boris Johnson. There's a wonderful video of me looking really uncomfortable next to Boris Johnson on the internet. So basically I did that, and then and I got a literary agent off the back of it, and so I was a bit oh, this is going pretty well. I think I might, I had an opportunity basically to leave the civil service with a bit of money, so I took it, and I was writing a couple of I was writing for Standard Issue for a bit. I was writing for another place, the Offside Rule podcast, which is women's podcast about football. I was doing a few like bits and bobs, and like trying to make it work, and that's it basically. And then I eventually started getting a bit of paid work, and then sort of got involved with standard issue more and more.
Well, I introduced you to Nick Miller, who introduced you to some people who needed sports writers that weren't men.
Yeah, I think in that situation, being a woman was actually a massive advantage.
See a niche, fill it.
Well, that was it. I remember you sent me an email just going, okay, I want to do this full time. How do I make this work, Nick? And I went, gird your loins, but you've got this USP. You're a woman talking about sport, and at the moment, you need to rinse that.
And it was, I think a lot of places were just like, all right, you're a woman, great, fine, we'll give you a shift just because you're a woman and there are no women here doing this.
And frankly, apparently that looks bad.
Before I started doing this, I always used to retweet things like
that. You hadn't read?
Yeah, hadn't read.
Why?
And then when because I was a dick. But what changed actually was that time when I wrote that thing about the Women's World Cup, and it kicked off on the standard issue Twitter.
Yeah. And people hadn't read your
content. People hadn't read it, and I kept going like, all right, have you read it? And they go, no. I said, maybe give it a read then. And they go, oh, it's quite good actually. You're like, but you're not now going to tweet again and say, oh, actually, she's not a dick.
So what was the piece about then, and what made people kind of jump?
It was like a joke, basically. So there was so it was the Women's World Cup in 2015 in Canada. And I think it was like Eamon Holmes or someone, probably saying something illegal now. It was on some morning TV thing, like basically people started getting interested around the point that they were like, oh, they might win this. Anyway, so there was someone on like a Good Morning whatever show that had a sign that said, come on our girls.
Yeah.
And I was like,
unfortunate.
That's really unfortunate.
It's really appropriate for our setting.
Yeah, so I think the tweet
and
was
an
something
interesting
like...
punctuation lesson in itself.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you don't spell it like that, it's really you.
Mm-hmm. But they, so...
G-U-R-L-S.
So the tweet was, Jen Offord wants you to come on our girls or something like that, which was a joke about like blah, blah, blah. But everyone's just like, oh my God.
So disrespectful.
Oh, whatever. It's like, literally, if you read it, like the whole thing is about like supporting women's football.
Yeah.
Like,
also, if you've ever read anything in our publication
Yeah.
ever before, we champion women. That is why we exist.
Yeah. Oh no, I think it was. Yeah. So I think I called it "Get Behind Our Girls" because I thought that was quite a funny pun, right, in the context of this stupid thing. Yeah, but the tweet was like, Jen says, "Come on, our girls," and
Get behind
You were too nuanced.
Yeah.
You may as well just write a tweet that just says, "I'm on Twitter."
Yeah.
So that's basically what you're saying. I'm on Twitter. I'm here.
Really quite woke.
Yeah.
But it's crazy that, like, I mean, I've only been on Twitter since 2013, so that's 6 years. And within 6 years, I literally can't remember the world before it. I actually have to, because we were just talking about, like, I can remember when September the 11th happened, I was working in a newspaper office, and we were all gathered around watching it on the television, like happens on TV programmes. It was just a newsroom full of people watching it on TV, because we had one computer that had the internet. In a whole newspaper office, one computer had the internet. And the internet was so goddamn slow because everyone was there going, what just happened? That I actually forget that it wasn't always there. I actually have to try and make a mental note when I'm telling stories that I think, that can't have been right. I can't have used a mobile phone to ring them, or I couldn't have checked it with the internet because it wasn't there. It wasn't a thing. Writing a sidebar. Like, the number of times I'd say to a journalist, like a young reporter, can I have a sidebar on that? And they'd, like, raise your eyes. You'd be like, you got Wikipedia, dude. We used to have to go to a library to write a sidebar.
Well, I started on later. And so as the absolute junior, like the baby journalist, I wrote all the side boxes. I'd do people's transcription, worst job ever. And I would write a lot of side boxes and then occasionally get thrown a feature, because that's how it works. And I would have to go to a library and look stuff up on microfiche. It was quite exciting. And then we got the internet, and I was the go-to in the office for the only fucker who could use Google. I understand this. I don't need to ask Jeeves anymore.
In a box.
Well, I think back then you actually had to be quite inventive with how inventive/prescriptive with what you put into the search bar, because no one was thinking about how do I make this come up in a search bar.
I think you used to have to spell it right as well.
Yeah, you have to type correctly.
Yeah.
Sorry, we've gone off on one.
No, this is exactly the theme of the podcast.
The update. the old days. When I was a young reporter.
Which were only 20 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
There's been no other 20-year period in history where things have changed so quickly.
Industrial Revolution. But that's it.
That's it.
Google,
Yeah.
And the printing press, the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
And even then, because most of the population wasn't literate, it affected clogs and monks. And then it filtered down to the rest. But this affects all of us who are literate, which is...
Yeah. But I mean, it has changed journalism completely. Yeah. And I was really depressed by how it was going to change journalism when I thought about it from that side of it, when I could see the future or couldn't, what I thought the future might be. I found it quite depressing. In a lot of ways, a lot of the things that we were really worried about have been proved right. And I think that's what
sorts of things?
Well, I mean, the quality.
Oh my God, yeah.
I mean, just... I mean, something. I was a chief sub for a long time.
Yes,
and subbing...
painful age in which for you to live.
Yeah, and so subbing is, ridiculous. And stuff gets written straight to the page. But I don't know if people care about it so much, to be honest. I actually genuinely think that I'm depressed at how little people care. So quality has definitely fallen. But I think also and the great example is what's happening now, in journalism, is people are so keen to have our story that whether or not that story is either true or they can stand it up, or even whether that story is actually the story you should be following, which is like the classic. I'm so glad that Peter O'Byrne wrote that piece, because I nearly lost my mind about a month ago on Twitter about anonymous sources. Yeah. And a lot of people quoting a lot of, I'm talking about like Laura Kunsberg, Rupert Pest, and people like that, the Times, quoting anonymous number 10 sources.
In the bid to be the first.
In the bid to be just have something to say, just to be creating something. And at the same point, not questioning, A, whether that's actually that true, or whether you should be putting in the public domain, even if it is true. B, whether or not there's not another story. I mean, the other story is, what the fuck does it say in the withdrawal agreement? And that's what I'd rather be reading about than what Boris is threatening to do with this, that, or the other. So I think that kind of... I mean, whether or not that would have happened even if Twitter didn't exist, because it's kind of the rolling 24-hour news cycle that created that idea of just, we've got to fill it with something. Just fill it. I mean, I can see the point of the 24-hour news cycle when you're sitting watching Notre Dame burn down, because you're like, hey, this is kind of like a moment, and everyone's sitting watching it on television. But at other times, it's just, let's just trawl through Twitter and see what people are saying, and you're like, hey, news, that really isn't news.
But even from a non-news perspective, there are some publications that I think are like genuinely like good publications, but the stuff that they put online is just bollocks.
Because they need to fill that space.
But then you're kind of like, what is the point of this shit existing for the sake of existing? Like, what?
Clicks.
It's so depressing.
But it's so they can sell... We're not going to name names, but we're talking about the same place.
We are,
but it's so they can sell the advertising in their print one, which is where that is the mental thing. Print is still the place where journalism makes money, even though very few people are buying print publications anymore. But advertisers want to see their adverts in full glossy colour. They want to be in that prime position in a newspaper, even though everyone's reading something online. So it goes hand in hand, and so their advertisers now also need to be sold. You'll get this many clicks online, therefore they have to create content. That isn't even fucking content, it's just nonsense.
It's literally like, here's 10 shoes. Like, you're just like, I can't...
And then they do them in the gallery so that each one's a new clip. Yeah. It's so manipulative.
Yeah.
But also people's attention span is so much shorter these days. When we started Standard Issue online as a magazine, I still put word limits on stuff. I was still like, this should be this, and we would decide how many words you'd get. We'd have a slightly longer read, or you'd have a quick read. And a couple of journalists, and they were actually journalists, massively overwrote. And were like, well, it's not even a space issue. I'm like, no, but it's an attention span issue. No one's going to read to the end of your lovely piece. So we'll cut this bit in the middle, and then people are going to really appreciate the big gag at the end. They're going to get it. It's the advice I've given to baby journalists since the beginning of time, which is, all of these 5 adjectives are lovely. Pick your fucking favourite. Because they can't all go in, it's too busy.
And what are they reading on as well? Like a phone is 2 minutes to be like,
It's just that I can't actually, I mean, I can, but I don't, because my eyesight is so bad.
Jen can't actually read.
I can't read. No, I find it really difficult to read anything at length on a screen, on a mobile phone screen. It's just, my eyes just aren't made for it. Do you know what I mean? And I think that, I can't be the only one.
No, I think you're absolutely not.
Screens are harder to read for everyone.
Yeah.
But it's where we're getting most of our information. Well, Hannah and I are both from a comedy background.
I didn't know
So
that.
when I worked at Metro, when I worked at the Lads Mags, I did all of the comedy interviews because comedy was very much seen as filler. And when I worked at Metro, I was the arts editor for the Yorkshire edition, and I was the comedy editor across the UK apart outside London. They have their own in London. And I go up to the Edinburgh Festival for a couple of weeks every year, do comedy. That's how I met Sarah. So comedy was always important. Comedy is also a lens that we look at the world through. I think that's how we get through stuff. And there's two different thoughts here. By engaging people and making them laugh, you can actually feed them information that's important and might make them think as well. Although Sarah Pascoe, and I think she's got a massive point here, has often argued that actually by laughter, they think they've done their thing. They think they've actually engaged with it, and then they go, well, I did my bit. I went along and listened, as opposed to becoming active.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it definitely can get a message home. So why wouldn't we use it? And Hannah used to do stand-up.
Yeah.
So Sarah picked us because she knew us from the comedy circuit. So it wasn't necessarily a choice that we made for Standard Issue. It was just more, that's how it is. That's how we are.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that Sarah knew obviously
wanted to get involved
were comedians.
So yeah.
It was a storytelling aspect, maybe. Do you think that's what glues them together?
A lot of it is also that, so what you got, I'm speaking for you, I obviously wasn't there at the start, but I
fascinated, Jen. What am I going to say?
I think a big part of it as well, what Sarah was trying to do, was she was trying to give an alternative view of women to the way they are, or I think, as she put it, like the narrow definition in sort of mainstream media or whatever. And I think with the female comedians that got on board, obviously they're in a sort of industry that is so male dominated. For a lot of them, it was probably quite a nice opportunity to be like, oh, cool, like,
this is for me.
Yeah, this is for me, this is my audience. This is also a really good way to connect with a new audience that maybe didn't know about me before.
Jen articulated it perfectly. Thanks.
Well, and this is just speaking for myself, I don't generally take things seriously unless they're really, really serious. And even then I think that there's ultimately things to be laughed at. So, yeah, I don't know that we've deliberately gone out. For a long while, we put ourselves in the comedy section. And then we moved because at the same point, we kind of walk a very fine line. At the same point, if you're selling yourself as comedy, but you're putting out an hour-and-a-half documentary on Margaret Thatcher or the Repeal the 8th thing, people are going to be like, hang on, isn't that news? And yes, it is news. So we kind of, I think now we're in news now.
Society.
We also do a lot of arts as well, don't we? We do a lot of theatre, we do a lot of books, we do a lot of TV, things like that. So it's not like, not.
So those categories don't quite work. They are quite blurred, a bit like our jobs are blurred and the skills we have go from one category.
I have to say, I don't know that that's necessarily, if you're thinking of going into podcasting, in a lot of ways, I think the fact that we are unpigeonholable has actually held us back.
Yeah, we're a bit of a curate's egg, I think.
Because we don't...
People love boxes. This is the second time I've said this today. People love a box and we don't fit in any box.
Take for example, the British Podcast Awards, which has a lot of categories, all of which we could go into and none of which we could go into at the same time. Yes, we could go in as an interview podcast because we do interviews. We don't do hour-and-a-half long interviews. So are we able to compete with Briefcast or something like that? Probably not. But at the same point, we do interviews, so we should probably be in there. So I think in a lot of ways, we don't... When people do hey, these are the best tech ones, these are the best sport ones, these are the best ever ones, we're not in any of them. We're not 100% anything. So
women.
Yeah.
We're the best women. That's the only category we kind of like, hey, we've got them. They're definitely women.
Yeah.
Put them in there.
Yeah.
We did make a couple of
because
they're women.
They're women.
Yeah. Still women, but there's quite a lot of women now.
Yeah, there's loads of them.
Yeah.
A flood of women. Lady flood.
What do you listen to then? Do you listen to podcasts yourself?
Yeah, I do. I have to say I didn't really before before we started doing the podcast.
Same.
Which was one of the, although to be honest, that's generally me all over. I didn't get properly trained before I was a journalist. I got a job and then got trained. I didn't do a comedy course before I decided to do stand-up. So we didn't listen that much. Yeah, I mean,
I'd say you listen to more than me and Jen now.
I really like Clay Parkinson's two-shot pod. I think that's really good. I like the Rule of Three. I think that's great. I absolutely love Romaniacs. I think they make what's really quite depressing news seem very, very funny a lot of the time. I mean, that's a podcast that wouldn't sit in comedy, but my predominant emotion that I have while listening to it is so yeah.
That's not an emotion, that's a noise.
But they're all men's podcasts, so maybe I should think of some
Drunk Women
podcasts.
are great. Drunk Women, Silent Crime are really good. I like that. I'm a dipper. Given that we put out a weekly podcast, I remain a dipper. And since I moved to London, someone else is talking. Since I moved to London and I'm not travelling as much, it's definitely gone down.
I dip in and out again. Yeah, no, I dip in and out of them as well. I have a few that I sort of regularly dip in and out of, which are Griefcast. I mean, partly because Carrie's my mate, as discussed, but also it's really good what she does. And I think it's important as well, And Hannah and I have both been on it as well, constantly. But also
just waiting for someone to die. Carrie, there you go. Just waiting for someone to die.
Adam Buxton is always great.
I've got this Chris Morris.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
I've listened to both of them.
They're really good.
They're brilliant.
I got a long car journey on Saturday.
Yeah, you got a train journey.
Yeah, you can have a lovely time.
Susie Gage's Say White to Drugs is really, really good.
Who's that? Susie Gage?
Dr. Susie Gage, Say White to Drugs.
Say White to Drugs.
Yeah.
Never heard of that.
It's really good.
She's part of the Scroobius Pit Network. It's not called that, but that's what I'm calling it.
But he has a big figure in podcasts.
Yeah. She's lovely at the Scroobs.
I would also like to shout out, I talk every time we talk about Pod on, Julia Rayside's Always There podcast, which is about How's Way, and which I never watched because I was very little when it was on. But it's fucking brilliant. It's one of the funniest things. It's a delight. I recommend it to anyone.
One that I do listen to regularly is John Robbins and Ellis James, but obviously they're men's as well. But Sarah Morgan's The Fear, that's really good. There's loads of great stuff, and I think it is almost a bit option paralysis, and so I don't. And also, when you're audio editing a lot of the time, which is what we do, sometimes I don't want anything in my ears. I don't even listen to as much music as I used to. I'm just like, let's have some quiet. Let's have some quiet time with the cat.
I tell you what's quite interesting though is that, and I don't know, it's kind of my attitude to most things. So maybe don't take me too seriously, but the kind of already in a short period, podcasting has gone from this kind of relatively I don't want to say guerrilla, but you know what I mean, thing that was happening in people's back bedrooms to this BBC Sounds official thing.
We're somewhere in the middle.
And I actually think that, we're all somewhere in the middle.
I'm pretty sure that in the BBC they always record by a disabled toilet.
I always think, I just think that sometimes the BBC should stay in its lane a bit with stuff like that. Because, here's a great example, like the Brexit Cast podcast, which is all of their political reporters sitting around having a chin wag. I just don't think it adds particularly much to the debate, but it probably stops people listening to a lot of other good politics podcasts that are out there being done by different voices. So in a lot of ways, it adds unnecessary competition to that thing. I quite like I would always rather listen to an offbeat, maybe not great sound quality one, to an official, because there are other places I can watch and get those people's opinions, whereas there are other places you can get that podcast from.
A lot of them are just radio shows, isn't
it? Essentially,
which is ridiculous. I'll just listen to it on iPlayer if I feel like I need. Do you know what I mean? It's
I've got to say, on a radio point, it was interesting. So yesterday, when we were recording this, there was the big news that Zoe Ball's Radio 2 breakfast show has lost 360,000 listeners. And I saw a very interesting point that someone made, which was, I wonder what response that would have got if the headline was Zoe Ball's Radio 2 breakfast show still the most listened to radio show in the country, which it is. And it's like, okay, they're judging that over 10 years. Chris Evans will have taken loads of his fans with him when he's gone back to Virgin. But also, a lot of people are now leaving radio to listen to podcasts. So she's got competition that just did not exist 10 years ago. And I like Zoe. I think she's been on our show. She's great. And I think she gives great content. But that is a very hard audience to cater for. And no matter how well she does her job, she's a woman. She's going to get shit for it.
And also, people used to have alarm clocks. So I have a radio alarm clock, right? Because I was trying to do this thing where I stopped having my phone next to me in bed, and so I would start reading again, and that went by the wayside, and now I just do that, but I still have a radio alarm clock. A lot of people just use their phones now, don't they?
Yeah.
So the time you would listen to the radio would be like in the morning.
Also in the car.
Yeah.
And now you just plug your iPod into your... I mean, even my car that has a pretty shitty radio, I can still get my phone attached to it. And therefore, don't listen to the radio, I will listen to something else while I'm driving.
Just from a really London-centric point of view, I can't listen to live radio underground.
Yeah.
Can I?
Probably not.
The Wi-Fi dips in and out, so I can't... So, like, I grew up in London, but when I was a kid, I got a school bus, so we had the radio on all the way, but as an adult, you think, she'll keep her habits, but I physically can't if I'm getting cheap.
Yeah, because if I'm listening to Spotify, and it's not something that I've got like saved or whatever, it cuts out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So even if people form habits, it doesn't mean they can carry them on. And it just feels to me that like Zoe came in and she fucked it up. It's like, no, she didn't. I mean, it's the whole context.
That's the whole thing of skewing the news, isn't it? So that's the story lots of people, and loads of people are like, called it when she was brought in. It's like, did you, mate? No. And it's like, and then you've got this long litany of male prime ministers and male broadcasters who have failed, and yet they're like, has he got a cock and balls? Let's give him a shot because this going back in.
So well.
I mean, it's a shame there's no relevant immediate example. Oh wait, no, it's happening all the time.
They're making such a good job of it.
Right? Look at it. The country's never been more at peace, never been more united. So I think it's very much comes back to sexism, which is good because that's my grant, not sexism, fighting it.
Keep being sexist, please.
Otherwise
we don't have a job.
Exactly. Something always happens that will not translate to audio.
Yeah.
So Miranda did some yoga.
It's Miranda Hart.
Yeah, sorry. She only has one name, though. Yeah. June Sarpong did some hula hooping.
Who did some tap dancing?
Katie Tunstall did some tap dancing. The Scummy Mummies did the dirty dancing lift. There's always...
on a stage.
On stage.
Not in a swimming pool.
No.
That's the only time I tried it.
Okay.
Because no one dies at the end.
Okay.
No head injuries.
No head injuries. Yeah, they survived. It was excellent. So there's always something happening that will not translate to the audio. Also, the vibe's just really nice. And I'm not even going to apologise for using the word vibe because it applies here.
I was going to say, I think there's a real warmth to it that I think you get to a certain extent when you listen to the gig cast, but I do think there's the atmosphere is always really nice. It's a really nice warmth from the audience and the panel, and like all of the guests like every time leave and say like what a lovely time they had and like what a nice crowd it was and how friendly it was and whatever. And I think it comes across, but it's different, isn't it? Yeah, we've all got like good stage faces as well. There's a lot of mug into the crowd that you're going to miss. Hannah and I just mugged at each other as we said that.
We had when we were in Edinburgh, not this year, last year, we had Sarah and I were on stage, and we had the brilliant Louisa Millican, and all of that seems quite normal. And then we had Janine Garofalo and Sue Pollard out on the same bill. And according to Jen, and this isn't going to work on a podcast, I just did this into the audience the whole way through.
Big
listener, her face was agog.
Yeah, that's the word for it. She was agog, which I only saw through tears of laughter because it was piss funny. We were like, Mick and I were standing at the bar, doubled over, laughing as Hannah just stared at us wide-eyed, like, what the fuck? I don't know
what's happening.
Whispered to her, what is a Philip Schofield?
How do you explain that?
It was quite hard. I mean, to be honest.
Off mic as well.
Yeah. It was, the whole thing was just
years of him.
Crazy.
And a couple of years ago, we had the brilliant Hannah Gadsby, who arrived 10 minutes into the show because she was late and she did the most...
Because she quit comedy by that point.
No, it was the year of quitting comedy. but she was the most rock and roll entrance ever. She basically, so I was on stage with Sarah, Hannah was at the back, and she was packed stand one. It was so hot in there and so packed. And she just said to Hannah, taximeter's running, can you go and pay him, please? And basically crowd surfed onto the stage, and we had to woman handler onto the tiny stool. So that there will always be something that you're not going to appreciate on the audio version.
Well, we went to see Richard Herring's podcast where he had Richard E. Grant, because we all love a bit of Richard E. Grant.
Which has never been released, and that's the other thing.
Yeah, and it wasn't. That's actually not the point I was going to make, but it's a very valuable point. But we went to the toilet during the break, and it's the only occasion ever in my life where the queue in a theatre that the queue for the men's toilet was longer than the queue for the women's toilet. And I thought, this is just these are his people. They have found themselves as a gang. And there was a point in which somebody asked a Star Wars question, and almost everybody in the audience except us knew the answer to it.
No, that's what to say. At the risk of sounding like a wanker, it's kind of like a safe space in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like, people on stage don't have to worry about what they look like or whatever. That's one of the things that the boss always says that she loves about it. We don't invite the press, so occasionally they turn up, but it's like, it's a really like nice kind of inclusive sort of atmosphere with swearing, with lots of swearing. Yeah.
And so there are general chats, there are our usual gigcasts, and what we're doing at Boulevard on November the 10th is actually a little bit different, because while that kind of general chit chat is great, it's nice to have a bit of focus. And 2019 has been really, really good for telly in general, but really, really amazing, a bumper year for TV by women, and in particular. So we're having a TV special with, fingers crossed, just waiting for the big yes to announce, some really fucking awesome guests who are brilliant women in television. And we're going to chat about that and about our favourite women characters in television, what still needs to be done, how they've got to where they've got to. It's going to be fascinating. With swearing.
It really, because I mean, in I suppose, having done what we've done for the period since 2014, since we started doing this, there is, an element of actually looking back and seeing improvement, which is something to be said for it.
Yeah, totally.
There are more women, there's certainly more women-written comedies in 2019 than there was when I started reviewing TV in 1996 or whatever it is. But I think there's been change in the last 5 years, a lot of which is down to, I have to say, a certain amount of people. I mean, Sharon Hall, huge talent and has dragged people in. Sally Wainwright's done a lot for women in drama. Because I think that actually women are more collegiate, is that the word I'm looking for? Women bring other people along with them.
Sisterhood.
Women repay the favour. Women don't see other women necessarily.
Anyone else?
Women don't see other women as competition in the way that men see other men.
I completely agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Some do, to be fair.
Some.
But no, I think you're right.
I think because society tells them to, rather than it's an intrinsic thing in them.
Yeah. But so when I've done with the sports freelancing stuff that I've done, I've met 2 women, because there's never any other women. But all of the women that I've worked with, we thought of other things we could do together, other ways we could work together and things like that in fairness never come up. But we have lots of ideas.
Yeah. I wonder if it's also being a minority group. You're like, competition isn't going to help any of us. Let's just bring more of us to this table. Yeah. Because there's only 3 of us.
Yeah. And let's just ask why 51% of the population is a minority. Yeah. It should be that way. But I think if you were to ask me what was my favourite part of my job, is I get to talk to incredible women all of the time. And they are forever opening my eyes to injustices that maybe I haven't spotted intersectionally or just in general because I don't move in those circles, but also ways of sorting them out. And that is inspiring. Pretty much every woman that we speak to, I come away feeling fired up that there is a positive change being made or ready to be made. And it's pretty great job satisfaction.
I think that's the lid.
I think that's the end of the conversation. That's all right.
What's the right space?
one from each of you, so always end with like 3 top tips for this that you want to follow in your footsteps.
Okay, well, I would actually agree with what you said, which is know what you want to do before you decide to embark on it, and particularly before you decide to buy certain kit for it, because it could be that for what you're doing, you could do it cheaper than what you might run out or buy, or it could be for what you're doing, maybe it's worth investing in a really decent mic. Think about where you're going to be interviewing people, or if it's an interview, or if it's just you in your bedroom, and decide what you want to do before you invest any money, I would say.
I would add to that, I think my top tip would be know what you want to say and why are you worth listening to. Like, what is it about you that makes what you have to say interesting?
I don't know if there's that much more to add, really. I think have faith in yourself. And if there's something that when you listen back, it annoys you, like possibly almost not being able to say your S's or your R's, just get the fuck over yourself as well. Like, if you're confident that what you're saying is something that people want to listen to, they're not going to pick up on the stuff that you pick up on. But yeah, my favourite part is talking to other people and doing the interviews. So if that's something that you're interested in doing for a podcast, what I'd say is, as much as you can, leave yourself out of it. Your guest is the most important person in the room when you're doing that interview.
Okay, so we are doing another show in November. We've got 2 shows in November. The first one is one that Mickey just told you about. The second one is we do exclusively interview women, except for the week of International Men's Day. Inequality affects men as much as it affects women, so we do some interviews around that, and we do a live show with men on the stage with us. And this year's show is November the 18th. It's at King's
International
Place.
Men's Day
Eve. That's the thing. Because last year it was on International Men's Day, Boxing Day. And our guests are Craig Parkinson, who we've already talked about, Nish Kumar, and Joe Lycett.
What a lineup.
Yeah.
Incredible lineup. And you can find out details for that show, and indeed all of our live shows, at www.standardissuepodcast.com.
And we are...
.com, not .com. Come on, you girls.
And we are at Standard Issue UK on Twitter.
And we're at Standard Issue Podcast on Instagram. Please follow us on Instagram. That would be really helpful.
Can I just point out that I think I said .com because I'm in an old sex theatre?
Possibly. It's .spunk, Nick.
.spunk.
Yeah.
.jizjuice.
Oh,
Time to stop. Sorry.
We came to a climax.
Yeah.
So it was a really fun episode to record in such a great space at the Boulevard Theatre. Thanks again to Emma Green. And make sure that you check out the live shows. Standard Issue, 10th of November. Freelance Pod, 17th of November. You can find more details and tickets on both shows at the Boulevard Theatre website. And it would just be great to see if you're coming along. Like, do shout out on our social media. If you enjoy the podcast, please do rate, review and subscribe over on Apple Podcasts, and why not tell a friend too? This helps our community grow, and that enables me to keep making Freelance Pod.